Shalom, shalom. First off, I want to give all praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Racha, Chodash. Yahweh is the true name of a Heavenly Father, who the world ignorantly calls God, and Yahweh Shai is the true name of the Heavenly Father's Son, the Son of Yahweh, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. I want to give double honors to my apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who I learn this truth from, and peace and blessings goes to the hopeful elect, my brothers that are out in the highways pushing His word and His truth in sincerity. I'm the brother Isaiah from GMS Los Angeles, and in today's lesson, Lord willing, this lesson is edifying through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. But in today's lesson, I'd like to go into the iron mixed with miry clay. All right, I'll explain what that is. What I got the title from is from the book of Daniel, the second chapter. And Daniel's the second chapter is a chapter where it breaks down the dream that Nebuchadnezzar have of statues of different metals like gold, silver, brass, and iron, which represent different nations that was going to rule. All right, and the Lord showed King Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, which represent the head of gold, of statues of a statue of kingdoms that was going to rule before the stone, which represents our Lord Yahweh Shai, returns and breaks that statue and put all nations in subjection, all right, and establish His kingdom here on earth. All right, and I did a lesson going into that in Daniel's 2, the statues of kingdoms, and I mentioned what the iron mixed with miry clay is, but the Spirit's armed me to go into a little more depth into that. And I have an article, and I do have a video that I want to show you brothers in this lesson. But before we get into that, let's read the book of Daniel's, the second chapter, and the 40th verse. All right, let's start from there. So this is Daniel's chapter 2, verse 40. It says, "And the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron." Right. Now, the fourth kingdom represents the Roman Empire, all right, which were Edomites. All right. It says, "For as much as iron breaketh in pieces and subdueth all things, and as iron that breaketh all these shall it break in pieces and bruise." And when you go into the history of the Roman Empire, that's what they did. They went and conquered all nations. Okay? They went and conquered the nations around them and made them subordinate to them. All right? You had a lot of nations that had to kiss the eagle, all right, bow to the eagle, and pay taxes to the Roman Empire. Right? So verse 41, it says, "And whereas thou sawest the feet and toes part of potter's clay, and the part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it of the strength of the iron, for as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay." Now, the iron and clay, when you scroll up, let me see verse 32. Verse 33 says, "His legs of iron, and his feet part of iron and part of clay." Now, the feet represents NATO and the EU. All right, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization and the European nations. All right, and when it says iron mixed with clay, it goes into how you have strong European nations and weak European nations. Strong in a form, in a sense of militarily, economically, and weak as you have weak European nations, like weak European nations that are weak economically and militarily. Okay, and that's why when you go into the creation of NATO, right? They created NATO because of the Soviet Union, all right, Russia. All right, if Russia invaded one of NATO states, all right, that all nations that were part of NATO had to go and fight Russia, and what comes out of NATO is America. All right, they come out of they're part of NATO. So let's scroll down to verse 41 again. It says, whereas thou sawest the feet and the toes, part is clay and part of iron. Right. So the nations that were part of NATO and EU, all right, you're gonna have some strong nations, strong economically and militarily, and weak economically and militarily. Okay, and it says, the kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in of the strength of iron, for as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay. Verse 42, and as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. Right, you can have a partly strong and partly weak. All right, now let's get a precept. All right, because what we read in Daniel's the 2nd chapter, right, was the dream that that the Lord showed Nebuchadnezzar. All right, but the Lord showed the prophet Daniel a dream of nations. Instead of a statue, these nations came in a dream in the form of beast. Right, and when you scroll down to the book of Daniel's, the 7th chapter, in the 7th verse, it says, and after this I saw on the night vision, and behold, a fourth beast, and dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly. Right, this fourth beast again is the Roman Empire. Right, and it had great iron teeth. Right, great iron teeth. When you look up online, right, all you have to do is type in the Iron Age, right? Right, the Iron Age Rome, right? The Roman Iron Age, a period in Northern European archaeology that refers to the time when the Roman Empire influenced the region's unconquered people. The Iron Age in Europe is characterized by the use of iron as a primary material for tools and weapons. In the Roman Empire was a kingdom that used iron a lot for their weapons. All right. It says, and the development of more elaborate designs for these items. During this time, weapons, implements, and utensils were hammered into shape instead of cast, and decorations became more souvenir and elaborate. Okay. Right. The Roman Iron Age began before Rome became an international empire, and iron weapons were a key factor in the Roman military effectiveness. Right, they used, again, the Roman Empire used iron as the main material to make their weapons. Okay, so let's go back to Daniel's the 7th chapter. It says, and after this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth, and it devoured and break in pieces. Right, breaking pieces these other nations around about. All right, and an example of that was the nation of Israel. All right, mainly the southern kingdom. All right, because the northern kingdom at this time was already on the other side of the world. Okay, but they broke in pieces the southern kingdom. They gave hell to the Israelites. All right, so it says and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it. All right. Now you and the nation, the kingdom of Babylon, the kingdom of Medes and Persians, they had a king. Okay, and if that king were to die, you didn't have no senator or no politicians in office that would decide who's going to be the next king. The one that would rule the after the king was usually the son. Okay, but the Roman Empire, this wasn't the case. It was diverse. Why it was diverse? Because it had a political system like the plebeians and the patricians. They voted in their king. All right, and that's, another reason why when you go into Julius Caesar, that's another reason why he got assassinated, because he wanted to be king. Okay, but they weren't with it. All right, the Roman had a political party, just like modern day Rome, which is America. They have a political party. You have the Republican and Democrats, and you had the vote in who's going to be the president. Same thing with Rome, because this is Rome all over again. They voted who was going to be the next Caesar at that time. All right, you didn't have the son of the Caesar be the next king. All right, they voted in who's going to be the next Caesar. All right, so that's what made it diverse from the rest of the beasts that had kings. Right? It says, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. Okay, it had 10 horns. Now these 10 horns, all right, and I'm gonna read these the nations that make up the EU, and these were their ancient names. When you go into it, and Daniel's Salakia, give me a second. When you go into the 10 horns, is the Vandals, Franks, Ostrogoths, Visigoths, Alemanese, Burgundians, Lombards, Anglo-Saxons, Suebies, and Hurleys. Now, I know I couldn't really pronounce certain names, so Salakia. What I'm going to do is I'm going to write these names on, and I'm going to post it on this video. All right, but these nations, these 10 horns, these were vassals, kingdoms who were subordinate to the Roman Empire. Now, when you go into a vassal, let's look that up real quick. Right. Now, the vassals in the medieval Europe, a vassal was a person who pledged loyalty and service to a lord or monarch. All right. In this case, the Roman Empire. You had these different kingdoms of Edomites that pledged their loyalty to the Roman Empire. And when you go into the history, that's what the Roman want. They wanted your loyalty, and they wanted you to pay taxes. Okay, and that's why what's that show? I forgot the show I watched, but there was a show that it was on Netflix. Lucky, I forgot the name. Don't come to me, but in that show, they had to go to these other nations, mainly the barbarians, and try to get them to kiss the eagle. And that's what Rome did. All right, they went around, conquered these other nations around them, and made them basically vassal states, like Anglo-Saxons and the Burgundians. All right, these were like the 10 horns. But today, all right, today you will have Belgium, Netherlands, Germany, Denmark, Greece, Portugal, France, Italy, Luxembourg, Ireland, and Spain. All right, these are the nations that make up the EU. Now, of course, today they have expanded to 20 plus nations, of course. All right, but going back to Daniel's the second chapter, in the the 42nd verse, it says, Daniel's 2:42, and as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. All right, now I have this article here. Now, in the EU, in the European Union, they created a term for the nations that were weak economically, and that affected the European nation, right? And and they call them pigs. All right, now right here I have Investopedia. It says, what are pigs, and a link with the European debt crisis. What does pigs mean? Pigs is a derisive acronym for Portugal, Italy, Ireland, Greece, and Spain, which were the weakest economies in the Eurozone during the European debt crisis. All right, so these were like nations that were weak economically. All right, that were affecting that were the weakest economies during the European debt crisis, right? It says at the time, the acronym's 5 countries garnered attention due to their weakened economic output and financial instability, which heightened doubts about the nation's abilities to pay back bondholders and spurred fears that these nations would default on their debts. Okay, now this is why you had the term Brexit, right? When you had, let's look up Brexit real quick. When you had Britain leave the EU, which they're still, the UK, which they're still part of NATO, but they left the EU, right? Brexit, right? It says the Brexit was the withdrawal of the United Kingdom from the European Union following a referendum held on the 23 June 2016. Brexit officially took place I think that's 11 o'clock. Yeah, 11 o'clock, if I'm not mistaken. On 31 July 2020, the UK is the only sovereign country to have withdrawn from the EU. The UK had been a member state of the EU or its predecessor, the European Communities, EC, since January the 1st, 1973. Following Brexit, the EU law and the Court of Justice of the European Union no longer have primacy over British laws. So basically, when we go back to Daniels 2, all right, it says, scroll up a little bit to 41st verse again. It says, and whereas thou sawest the feet and the toes, part of powder and clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided. Right, the kingdom is divided, and we see that Britain at that time saw that it was best for them in their country to leave the EU. Okay, to leave the EU. All right, so let's go back to this article. It says the use of this term, pigs, is a derogatory marker for Portugal, Italy, Ireland, Greece, and Spain that began to be used in the late 1970s to highlight the economic impact of these countries on the EU. The use of this term has largely been discontinued due to its offensive nature. Portugal, Italy, Ireland, Greece, and Spain were blamed for slowing the Eurozone's economic recovery following the 2008 financial crisis by contributing to slow GDP. So, hey, this is why Britain left. All right, because if you had multiple nations that were doing bad economically, that affected all of the EU because they use the same currency. All right. It says growth. It says financial crisis by contributing to slow GDP growth, high unemployment, and high debt levels in the area. All right. During the U.S. financial crisis in 2008, the Eurozone was compromised of 16 nations that had adopted the use of a single currency, the euro. During the early 2000s, fueled largely by an extremely accommodative monetary policy, these countries had access to capital at very low interest rates. Inevitably, this caused some of the weaker economies to borrow aggressively, often at levels that they cannot reasonably expect to pay back in the event of a financial shock. The 2008 global financial crisis was this negative shock that led to economic underperformance, which rendered them incapable of paying back the loans that they had procured. Now, keep in mind, this is an old article, right? Updated. My bad. Updated July 20. So it was recently. Slack. I didn't see that. Since these nations used the euro as their currency, they were unable to deploy independent monetary policies to help battle the global economic downturn that was triggered by the 2008 financial crisis. All right, let me see. Oh, that was it on that. That's all I got from here. If I remember, because I sometimes forget, I could put the link in the description. But what I just did, I typed in pigs, and this on the Google, and this came up. All right, this site came up. So if you want to continue reading this, you can go ahead. All right, but now tables have turned. I have this video that I want to play. All right.
Pigs are flying. Not the animals, obviously, but the economies of Portugal, Italy, Ireland, Greece and Spain. The unflattering acronym was born during the Eurozone debt crisis in the 2010s, when this country's bad fiscal policy and slow growth threatened the future of the European single currency. Now the tables have turned. Since 2019, Spain, Greece, Portugal and Ireland have all grown faster than Germany and France. These countries...
Right. Like Germany and France. Now the guy's speaking of how Ireland, Spain, Greece, which are considered pigs, right, and weak, that had an effect on the EU economy, all right, are now going faster than Germany and France, which used to have, were considered to be strong economically, all right.
Overexposure to export and manufacturing, which struggled due to the pandemic and the slowdown in key markets such as China, helped them a lot. The rebound in tourism after COVID-19 was also a boon, since foreign visitors tend to favor the likes of Barcelona, Athens and Lisbon. European Union post-pandemic funds are another help. 2/3 of the €400 billion pot is allocated to Italy and Spain, while Greece is likely to receive EU grants and loans equivalent to nearly 12% of GDP by 2026, according to TS Lombard research. Investors have noticed spreads between yields on the 10-year government bonds for all the PIGS countries and the corresponding German sovereign debt have fallen over the past 2 years. They could narrow even further if strong growth and new fiscal rules encourage more budgetary discipline in Rome, Madrid and other capitals. As for Germany, to spur economic growth, the country's politicians and central bank representatives will have to do something they hate doing, given their traditional fears about rising inflation: argue for lower interest rates.
All right. Now I was into that. Let's finish Daniel's 2 where we left off. At 42 it says, "And as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay." All right, and just like how you see with America and having these migrant crises, there's a lot of talk about how you have people from Venezuela coming over here committing high crimes, and not just Venezuelan people, but you have all nations, mingled over here in America. Same thing going to Europe. All right, you have a lot of these nations migrating over to Europe, going crossing their borders. And they're having a migrant crisis, man. All right, but with that, I'll end it there. Lord willing, this was edifying through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai. Till next time, I want to say shalom.